on the side of the highway, you have big building after big building, and a lot of times they have like a nice big swath of grass that they just pay someone to come and cut. Nobody ever really goes and hangs out on the grass. Nobody really, they go straight from work to the parking lot and they hop in their car and they drive away. Well, now we have these beautiful raised bed gardens that are lining all the way along the parking lot. There's a lot of potential to grow quite a bit of food.
Welcome to the Food Garden Life Show. We think that growing and cooking together builds families and builds communities.
Our goal is to inspire and inform with stories and ideas about gardening, food, and people, and we give gardeners permission and confidence to challenge the rules.
Brought to you by Emma and Stephen Biggs. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Hey everyone, I'm Emma Biggs, and thank you for hanging out with us today on the Food Garden Life Show. I'm a Gen Z gardener, author, speaker, and blogger, and my passion is growing tomatoes, trying new and unusual crops, and saving seeds. I'm also the author of the kids' gardening book, Gardening with Emma, and my co-host here on the show is my dad, Stephen.
Hey everyone, I'm Stephen Biggs, food gardening guy, horticulturist, author, and horticultural journalist. Today on the podcast, we head to Montreal to hang out with Shawn Manning from Urban Seedling. And Shawn tells us how 10 years ago he channeled his love of growing vegetables into a business offering vegetable gardening services. Now, at the time, there wasn't a huge buzz about urban agriculture in Montreal, but there is now. And two of Shawn's goals from the start were making a difference in food security and helping people grow vegetables. But as Shawn notes, helping people who can afford gardeners to install vegetable gardens probably doesn't move the needle much on food security. Well, they've tweaked the business. They still offer homeowners food gardening services, but now they're making a difference in food security. So stay tuned. I'm excited about what they're doing. Urban Seedling is online at urbanseedling.com. If you're serious about food gardening, you can get my twice-monthly newsletter on foodgardenlife.com, and when you sign up, you get 2 guides, 20 small-space food gardening hacks, and grow figs where you think you can't in cold climates.
Do you have show ideas, questions, or feedback?
We want to hear what you think. So tell us. If you drop by foodgardenlife.com, you can email us, or you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, where we hang out under the handle Food Garden Life.
And you can also find me on Instagram as EmmaBiggs_grows, and you can also find me on my website, emmabiggs.ca.
Some shout-outs today. A shout-out to Cheryl, who told us all about Urban Seedling. And thank you, Cheryl. We really enjoyed chatting with Shawn. A shout-out to Miriam, who's a listener in Germany. And Miriam ordered my books about growing figs in cold climates. Miriam writes, "Thank you for your awesome book. I already applied some of your advice. I'm trying to propagate the tree with layering." Well, Miriam, thank you very much. And Miriam sent me pictures of the figs that she has underway on her windowsill. They look great, Miriam. And a shout out today to listeners on Reality Radio 101. This is year 4 of our live show on Reality Radio 101. It goes out the first Wednesday of every month. Now the station is bringing you all of our weekly episodes. So if you like what you hear, give the studio a shout or just send me a note directly at foodgardenlife.com. This spring marks a big milestone for me, 15 years. In spring 2006, I quit an office job to stay home and look after family. And that change eventually brought me back to the soil and to what I do today, teaching, writing, and hanging out with you here on the show. I can still picture the look of surprise on my wife Shelley's face the day that I came home and said, "By the way, I quit my job today." But the job that I left was recruiting. I was great on the phone, but I was hopeless at recruiting. I was just in the wrong place, and it so happened that my wife was just wrapping up maternity leave. So, 15 years ago, I began my new life of coaxing a double stroller into the trunk of a compact car. I had my daughter Emma, and I also had my nephew, and the three of us had tons of fun adventures. And while the kids napped, I thought of how to recreate myself and get back to my roots as a horticulturist. The thing was, I had no experience as an entrepreneur. That's when I dove into writing and journalism courses. I've always loved writing, but it was actually a tough adjustment for me at first because when telling people I was a writer, I'd cover my mouth with my hand. I was that unsure of myself. But now, 15 years later, I teach gardening through my writing, through my blogs, books, speaking, my newsletter, in-person classes, and I hope through this show. I love teaching and I just haven't looked back. So to celebrate 15 years, I'm putting the finishing touches on my new online course. It's called Edible Garden Makeover. And I'd be honored if you want to know more about it. You can find out more by jumping on my early bird list. And you'll find that at ediblegardenmakeover.com/early-bird. So ediblegardenmakeover.com/early-bird. Now, here is our chat with Shawn Manning of Urban Seedling in Montreal.
Shawn, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
It's my pleasure, Emma. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we are so excited to talk with you today. And I wanted to start by asking you what the edible gardening scene is like in Montreal.
Well, it is getting bigger and more exciting every year. I started this company about 10 years ago, and when I did, there wasn't a lot of buzz in the city about like urban agriculture. Absolutely, people have been growing food in their backyards forever here, but more and more it's becoming a bit of a craze that everybody would love to get growing and learning more about where food comes from and stuff like that. So it's definitely heating up over here.
Okay, and then how does Urban Seedling fit into that?
Basically every way.
Awesome.
Yeah, we build people gardens. So we are big believers and practitioners of square foot gardening and intensive gardening, raised bed, organic vegetable gardening. So we bring those practices to people's, whether it's backyards, balconies, rooftops, or anywhere really. And we offer a service of building people these gardens, and then we either will bring them seedlings that we grow ourselves, or we offer a planting service. So we will actually plant the stuff for people and then just send them little videos and little sort of newsletter style tutorial to help give them a little bit more confidence, because often that's the thing that holds people back is they assume that they're going to just kill everything, and they need somebody to basically give them a little kick in the butt and say, you can do this, don't worry, here, I'll hold your hand for the first little while, and then this is what you need to do to have success. So we do offer that. We also have a garden center where we again grow all of our own organic seedlings in Montreal in the southwest, in this old city greenhouse that we've sort of taken over with a bunch of other groups and organizations. And so we've opened that up to the public. And I do a lot of work in schools, so teaching kids about where food comes from, how to grow their own food, whether it's at the school or at home. And really anything in between. We also do a lot of stuff for where we try and get corporations, businesses that have underused green space to let us transform that space into vegetable gardens, and then we grow food there, and all that food gets donated to food banks and people and families that will benefit from that fresh food.
That's pretty exciting. Can we just stop on that one for a little bit? And how's the uptake been on that, taking those unused commercial or corporate spaces and doing what you're doing, that kind of food security initiative? That's neat. And how's it going?
It's going well. We have every year more and more gardens that are going in. Last year there were probably about 45 beds that we had that were specifically where that we were involved with. Would have done more last year. There were other big companies that were signed up and were going to be going forward, but because of everything that happened with COVID, they had to sort of put the brakes on a little bit.
Mm.
And so we'll see which ones of those will be ready to start that up again. Yeah, it's definitely a really, really, really well received concept. We do have a lot of other gardens for corporations or businesses where the gardens are going in for the employees, which is also a really cool thing
Mm.
that we do. So totally not where the end result is not donation of the food, but the end result is installing something at someone's place of work that gives them another reason to want to go to work other than just going there to do their job and earn their paycheck, but a way at work to be able to interact with your fellow coworkers and grow a little bit of food, have a fresh lunch some fresh veg at lunch.
I'm picturing a bleak industrial park with a little oasis of vegetables growing in it as you're talking about that.
Yeah, it is often that is the case. So it's like on the side of the highway, you have like big building after big building, and a lot of times they have like a nice big swath of grass that they just pay someone to come and cut. Nobody ever really goes and hangs out on the grass. Nobody really, they go straight from work to the parking lot and they hop in their car and they drive away. Well, now we have, these beautiful raised bed gardens that are lining all the way along the parking lot, and it's all irrigated so they don't have to worry about watering it. And then we have people that come in, whether it's volunteers from the businesses that are earning their volunteer hours at work by doing work in the gardens, and or some of the organizations that we work with will send in either students, or we personally will go in and do the work in the gardens. And there's a lot of potential to grow quite a bit of food and have an impact, because when I started this business, that was always a big part of our mission, was to be able to impact food security. So we finally figured out a way to do that other than each individual person having their vegetable garden, which does have a great impact, but it's not as impactful as something like the corporate gardens that we've been doing.
Yeah, and I imagine for the individual landscaping too, that's something where people need a certain amount of income before they can hire a landscaper to help them, right?
That's it. So for the most part, our clientele are people that own their own house, that have enough space to have a big or sunny enough space in their backyard and enough disposable income that they can hire someone to offer them that kind of a service, which is not necessarily having as much of an impact on food security as we would have initially hoped to have when I started this business. So this has really been a way for us to do some good in our community.
And I want to take a step back for a second, and I'm curious to know more about when you started this and what it was like when you started
Hmm.
the business. And to push it, was food security really the main reason why you started it?
I mean, when I started it, my wife and we had just moved into we bought a little duplex in Verdun in the southwest of Montreal. And we had a little south-facing backyard, and the previous owners had a small above ground pool that they took with them. So there was like a 10 by 10 foot mud pit in the middle of our backyard, and there were barely any plants. And my wife had expressed the interest to have a vegetable garden. Now, I grew up in kind of downtown Montreal, so no real sunny space to speak of in our
Mm.
backyard. We were part of a co-op, and there were many, many, many families that were sharing, like, a communal backyard sort of area. So I didn't really have a garden, but my grandparents had a big, beautiful garden in their backyard, and for them, having that vegetable garden was always, well, it was very important after the war. If you wanted to have fresh vegetables, you basically had to grow them yourself. And myself as a kid, I would go and hang out at my grandparents' house and basically just follow my grandfather around in the garden and, look at all the lettuce and all the things, and he would sort of ramble on, and I would listen and soak it all up and loved it. And so when my wife said, "Okay, let's build a garden," I was like, "Yeah, absolutely, that'd be great." We were planning on starting a family, and I thought that it would be a really good asset for our kids to be able to learn about where food comes from, etc. And also, I love food, I love cooking, and I remember that my grandmother's sandwiches were the tastiest sandwiches in the world. Well,
Hmm.
when I think back on it, they were the most plain sandwich you could ever possibly imagine. She had four sons, and they would go through loaves and loaves of bread. It was one little thin slice of ham, and a slice of tomato from the garden, and a piece of lettuce, and that's what made it the best sandwich ever. Was how fresh those vegetables were, and that was the only place that I'd ever tasted anything so fresh. Okay, I digress a little bit here.
That's okay.
Um, I built the garden. We bought a copy of Square Foot Garden by Mel Bartholomew. I read that book and basically emulated and imitated that concept. So we made the soil blend, went to the market and got myself some nice seedlings, planted them, and it was just the most beautiful, most productive, and most fun thing and an activity, and it was really great for my wife and I. And then one day we had one of our neighbors who had come over back in the day when we could hang out with our friends in our backyard, and we were just sitting around, and I was just talking about my garden. And whenever, as you guys I'm sure know, whenever you grow your own food, you can't shut up about how much you love your garden.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it's like this, and I grew this, and you have to taste this, and these are the flowers that I grew, and they, yeah, you can eat the flowers and in the salad, and you feel, because you're proud of it, because it is a part and an extension of something that you actually, it's like a real tangible thing that you've done, that you've created, and that you've grown from nothing. And so I was, going on about my garden, and she sort of, my passion like rubbed off on her. She's like, "Okay, yeah, well, I want to do this. And do you think you could build something like this for me?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I don't see why not." And that just sort of started
Hmm.
stirring around in my brain. And I come from a family of entrepreneurs. They're all, my father was a roofer, my uncle was a mason, my other uncle is in, construction and landscaping. I said, "Well, maybe there's an idea there. Maybe we could make a business where that's what we do, and we build people vegetable gardens." And at the time, I did a little research, looked into see if there was anyone offering any kind of service like that, and I wasn't able to find anything. I found one company in Portland, Oregon, that offered a similar service, and they had a 2-year waiting list. And in
Hmm.
Canada, I didn't find anything. Now, I'm sure there were people doing something like that at that point, but they didn't have much of a web presence, I guess, and I wasn't able to find anything. And so Portland and Montreal are very similar in many ways as far as lifestyle and the way that people act and live their life. The joie de vivre is similar. I said, "What the heck? Let's just go for it." And I registered a business and started working on a business plan, and that's where that all kind of started from. And then when we started putting together like the image and what we wanted to do, like our kind of mission statement, that really was part of it. The food security was right there at the beginning, but it became difficult right from the beginning to connect that dot. Like, it was always about education. It was always about a service and encouraging people to grow food, but that food security was part of it. But we didn't ever see that come to fruition until recently, when we started to really get more into these mission gardens where the food is being given to the mission.
Has your vision for what you do, or how has the company changed since you started?
Well, when we started, it was me and a truck.
Okay.
And that was the first thing. I got like we got some money from the BDC, the Business Development Bank of Canada, and I went and I spent half of it on a truck, a brand new truck, which was not a good idea, because I had this truck, which was great, but then I had no money to do the other stuff. So I started then like borrowing from family and trying to just get it going and get some income coming in. I had a great business plan, but no business, no clients. So I started. I think the first year I did 5 gardens, and I was just operating out of my basement in my backyard. The second year, one of the girls that I was running a catering company at the time. Also, I was managing and staffing for a pretty big catering company in Montreal, and one of the women that worked with me had an aunt who was a reporter for the Gazette, and she talked to her aunt about what I was doing. The Gazette wrote an article about our business, and then the phone really started to ring. We ended up doing 88 gardens that second
Wow.
year, and we were still operating out of the basement. We were growing our own seedlings in a little greenhouse that I bought from Costco, but we totally destroyed my backyard. Like we were, running around back there cutting wood, staining wood, and painting and doing all this stuff, and we just trampled all the lawn, everything. There was nothing left. But we were busy, and I don't know if you guys have ever heard of soil blocks. Have you ever seen the soil block
Yeah.
system? Yeah. So we were making soil blocks for all of our seedlings. We had the little ones that fit into the small ones, that fit into the medium-sized ones, that fit into the big ones. And we were making these soil blocks in our basement, pumping them out. It was really quite the setup. And at the same time, we have like, a 1-year-old running around the house. And my wife was, soon after we were pregnant for our second kid. It was just like it was wild. It was absolutely rock and roll. Um, but we made it through that year. We learned a lot. We made a lot of mistakes. We did a lot of good things, and we learned from those mistakes. And then what we did is it became quite obvious that we had something cool here that people were into. It also became obvious pretty early on that a business that was solely based on building vegetable gardens was not going to be sustainable financially. The season is too short. And then within the season, it's like shorter. Like the amount of time that you can plant vegetable gardens is fairly limited. You only have a few months in the beginning of the year, and then you can potentially do other work later in the year when it comes to like maintenance and things like that. But that was never the point. Like we first started and trying to like, okay, we're going to do maintenance, and then we'll charge people, and we'll go there every week, and we'll go and take care of their vegetable garden. Well, that again was getting back to that issue where basically the only people that could afford anything like that were people that had a lot of money, and they didn't really care about the vegetable garden. They just wanted the vegetables. And so I told them, I was like, listen, if all you want is vegetables and you don't actually want to take care of it, then just order a basket of fresh vegetables from a local farm. You'll get your organic vegetables, and it'll be on your door like you want. But what I want people that will actually appreciate their garden.
Yeah.
And you can't take care of a garden one day a week. It doesn't work. right? Like we were going and we were doing this maintenance and it was costing these people a good amount of money and it still wasn't really working because a garden just needs to be looked at every day. You need to water it and you need to just see what's happening. If there's something that's going wrong, you need to address it right away. You can't wait a week because in a week, everything could be dead already, or the disease could have already swarmed through and caused a lot of damage. So we basically stopped offering maintenance. We went to a model where we would do three plantings. We do a spring planting, a summer planting, and a fall planting, and a close. And that's still what we do to this day.
Oh,
We do offer like a weekend. If you're going away for a week, we'll go in and check on your garden. But it's not like I'm not taking care of people's gardens. I'm really showing them and helping them, and they have to take care of it. They have to water it and they have to eat the food. I'm not going to eat the food for them. So yeah, that was the evolution on that side, and we had to get out of the house. So we we found a spot not too far from our house that was basically, it was an old garage with a huge gravel pit in front of it. It was like a parking area with a big garage, and we set up in the old garage. I built a little like it had these two 16-foot garage doors. It was really it was they used to work on big trucks in there. And I set up a grow tent. We had a little office. We had all of our storage of all of our stuff that we brought in that we were using, and all our wood and all of our stuff was in the garage. And then I built a little boutique, but we were located in a really very, very industrial area, and like nobody knew where we were. Nobody came, but we continued to do and build the gardens. And so we were doing more and more gardens, but we weren't actually making any money. We were actually losing quite a bit of money because just paying the rent and paying the salaries and paying the people, and we were only working for X amount of months a year, and so we were it was looking pretty grim. We had a hard time making payroll. We had a hard time with everything. It was a very stressful time. So what we did at that point is we decided, okay, well, we need to be able to do more work. We need to be able to keep our employees working for more than just a couple of months when it's spring and summer planting time. And I can't do everything. I can't be everywhere, and I can't be doing all the stuff myself and not paying myself any money. My cousin, who is our partner and wasn't at the time, became our partner, and
hmm.
we started to do some landscaping as well. So we had some trucks, we had some equipment, and so we said, okay, we're already at people's houses, we're already seeing them about their vegetable garden, and every time you go to somebody's house, there's always more work to be done, right? And so we were already in the door, and we see, okay, well, we can redo that uni stone. We had experience in that. I worked in landscaping, and my cousin was doing landscaping at the time, and so we kind of teamed it up, and that extra bit of revenue has basically allowed us to continue our real passion, which is the vegetable garden. So we're basically like funding our addiction to growing food by doing more traditional stuff. Um, we always are encouraging people to do like alternatives to grass. We were doing clover lawns for a while. We are now doing um, more like indigenous fescues of grass lawns that are so more eco-responsible style, landscaping, trying to do more like permeable stones and things like that. But we do those things, and then always trying to incorporate edibles into the landscapes, and then trying to incorporate, fruit and nuts and things like that into the already, and make it aesthetically like ornamental, but still have it be edible.
Well, that's neat. So the more traditional landscaping pays subsidizes the edible landscaping, but also you can influence the traditional landscaping to be more edible and more sustainable. So I like the way that
Yeah,
fits together.
I wish we could just do vegetable gardens and have it be enough, and maybe one day we'll get there, but it'll have to really be a volume thing.
Okay. And so you've grown a lot of different things, I'm sure. So I'm curious to know what your personal favorite plant is.
You want to like slim it down for me? Like what favorite green, favorite nightshade, favorite fruit tree.
Well,
I
here's
just can't
one
do
that
it.
fits my personal favorite. I love tomatoes. So do you have a favorite tomato variety?
I sure do. Okay. Um, well, yeah, I have grown a lot of different kinds of tomatoes over the years. I think my absolute favorite is it's called jaune flamme. It's a small tomato, so not a cherry tomato. It's a bit bigger than a cherry. It's about, about the size, a little bit bigger than like a toonie. It's a
Okay.
dark orange. It has a smell when you pick it from the vine, where right at the stem that just is like totally intoxicating. It has a tanginess to it that is just perfect, and I think that might be my favorite tomato. Also, really like in a big tomato. Now, big tomatoes are a bit tougher because they're so much less productive, right? Like you only get a couple of them. You
Hmm.
might get 8 if you're lucky on one of those really big tomatoes. But I grow a tomato called the Cherokee Purple.
Oh
That is
yeah.
a dark brown, big beefsteak kind of sized tomato that on an open-faced sandwich, like a nice slice of homemade sourdough bread with that thick slice of Cherokee purple tomato and a little salt and pepper. And oof, oh my gosh, heaven.
Well, the way you describe it, it makes me so hungry. I'm dreaming of one
Okay.
right now.
Yeah, me too. Okay, I've got to change gears totally here because when I
Yeah.
first caught you on the phone, when we were just talking about having you on the podcast, I caught you in a donut shop, which sounded like a really awesome place. So tell our listeners, in case anybody is going to Montreal, what's this donut
Yes.
shop and what's your favorite donut?
Oh boy. It's a donut shop in St. Henry on de Courcelles, right like kitty corner from Home Depot. It's called Leche. So like um, yeah, leche like milk in Spanish, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And a really wonderful, super cool woman started that business around the same time that I started my business, actually. And I had a tiramisu donut there just the other day where it's like it was getting all over my face. They're really big and stuffed with all this, fantastic stuff. Honestly, favorite, I haven't had one that I didn't love when
Ah.
I've gone to her store. There were only they sell out every day, so you have to get there like early on in the day. And what they make that day is what you can get.
Okay. Well, Sean, we're almost out of time. So before we finish up, could you let our listeners know how they can find out more about you and what you do?
Sure. So they can find us at urbanseedling.com. That's our website. We're in Montreal. You can call us anytime if you have any kind of garden needs, be it edible or other, at 514-578-8900. We are on Twitter at Urban Seedling and on Instagram and Facebook, again, Urban Seedling. Be happy to answer anyone. We do have an online boutique for people that are needing seeds. I know it's very hard to get seeds these days. The wait times are potentially long. We still do have quite a bit of inventory in our online store. We sell other gardening products, and we will be selling seedlings through our online boutique.
Thank you so much for joining us. And it's really exciting to hear how you've woven together landscaping, food security, and edible gardening. Just love it.
Absolutely, my pleasure. It's been nice to talk to you guys too.
That was our chat with Shawn Manning from Urban Seedling in Montreal. You can find Urban Seedling online at urbanseedling.com. What did you think? I was struck by how, after 10 years, Shawn says the pieces are fitting together, how they've now found a way to make a difference with food security and also to make the business sustainable. As Shawn was talking about corporate gardens giving employees another reason to go to work, I was thinking back to past office jobs and thinking how much I would have loved being able to garden there. If this episode piqued your interest in the business of helping people grow food, drop by our archives because on the 25th of February we chatted with Mark and Arlene at the Backyard Urban Farm Company here in Toronto, and on June the 30th we chatted with Virginie Giesel all about her work making fruit trees available to the community, but also about her passion for designing food-filled landscapes for people. And she said to us, everyone's talking about food security, but I think we need to start planting for it. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to mention that Montreal holds a special place in my heart. It's where I grew my first container vegetable garden back in 1997. It was behind the apartment building I lived in, and there was this gravel-studded spot where my landlord had parked his boat, and when he sold the boat, he said to me, maybe you'd like to make a garden there. So I did, and in that spot, I grew the most memorable tomato I've ever grown. It was really like a little pumpkin. It was so big. So I took it to work to show my colleagues at the horticultural supply company where I was working, and I got a big nod of approval. And what was really cool was that there was an out-of-town executive from the company in the office that day, and I think it really impressed him. So it felt nice. As a yardless, recent graduate, I was also the grower of this very impressive tomato. And I just mention this because this container garden and this giant tomato were so easy to do. It was a 15-gallon nursery pot, a little bit of potting soil, and a little bit of TLC. And so to this day, I still grow in containers. Even though I have a yard, I grow on my roof, on my patio, and on my driveway. So if you don't have a lot of space, think about container gardens. The Food Garden Life show is back next week, and next week we take you to Quebec City. I'm super excited about our chat because while attending a symposium for garden writers in Quebec City a number of years ago, I saw a rooftop garden that really inspired me. Well, we tracked down the people who created that garden, and we'll hear all about it and all about a really cool new garden that they've made. It's on concrete, it's in the Quebec City Portlands, and it sounds great. And the group that made it is a not-for-profit that's on a mission to weave together growing food with social change. So I hope you'll join us next week.
You can listen to past episodes of the Food Garden Life podcast on foodgardenlife.com, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
You're listening to the Food Garden Life show. I'm Stephen Biggs.
And I'm Emma Biggs. Thanks for tuning in.